This Week in Agribusiness. Our special Christmas edition of This Week in Agribusiness is brought to you by Case IH. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our special Christmas edition of This Week in Agribusiness. What a privilege to join you this Christmas weekend. As we have done for so many years, we're visiting some churches out across the countryside. Yes, there's great history to this for us because Orion Samuelson, I think, somewhere in the neighborhood of almost 50 years ago, started these annual visits in churches as we've been visiting with you over television. And this year we're at Columbus, Indiana. Well, not far out of Columbus, and we're here at St. Paul Lutheran Church in the countryside to visit with the pastor of the church, Pastor Doug Bauman. It's a pleasure to meet you, and Henry Wishmeyer, a member of the congregation here. Pastor, you've been here for more than 2 decades. Give us a little bit of the background of this church.
Yes, this congregation was founded 175 years ago in 1848, primarily by people that immigrated from Luna, Germany. We actually maintained contact with our mother church, St. Simeon in Luna. Columbus and Luna are actually sister cities because of all the people in the Columbus area that are descended from that area, and so the connection is rich, it's powerful, it's a heritage we truly rejoice in. From those humble beginnings in 1848, God has continued to bless this congregation with many faithful people, has blessed us with growth, and continued above all to keep us faithful to God's Word and that mission of reaching out with the gospel message to our community and beyond.
We're here just down the road, as we said, from Columbus, and it has a magnificent story all its own. But Henry, this is a great agriculture area too. There are many fine farms around here, aren't there?
A lot of fine farms, for sure. A lot of former students of mine farming today in this county and adjoining counties.
I have to ask the question, I've gone into some of these Lutheran churches with a rich German heritage, and if I said, sprechen Sie Deutsch, there'd be a bunch of folks respond. Do some of the folks in the community, the older folks, still speak German, Henry?
Yes, I have some friends a little older than I that would speak it at home with their family, and they learned more than I did. I said, usually I knew enough to be dangerous, so.
I would struggle for sure. This church moved some years ago. It was in an older building, and you moved and moved the organ as well, did you not, Henry?
Yes.
That had to be a big undertaking, I'm thinking.
It was a big undertaking. There was quite a few volunteer gentlemen that were willing to help disassemble it up there and then bring it down here and reassemble it. And then since it's been added, 2 ranks?
Yep.
2 ranks have been added to it to give it more volume as well.
You've improved it as time has passed. Pastor, there's also a school here, correct?
Yes, we offer preschool and kindergarten, early childhood ministry, usually serve between 50 and 60 little ones a year, so a lot of great joy to welcome those children into the building every day and watch them grow, and especially watch them grow in their faith as we teach them how to pray the Lord's Prayer and teach them the commandments and Bible stories. So just a wonderful joy. One of the greatest joys of my ministry serving here is serving the children in our early childhood ministry.
Christmas is a special time in your congregation. I can see it all around us here.
Yes.
Share with us the extent of the ministry at Christmas time.
Yes, we have a number of events at Christmas time. In just a few days here, we'll have what we call our Christmas Family Fun Night, and we invite our church and our school families to come. We've had people these last weeks making gingerbread houses, over 75 gingerbread houses, because we expect about 75 families to come that night. We feed them supper, and everybody brings candy, and we lay out all the candy, and people get to decorate. Every family decorates a gingerbread house that they get to take home for the holidays. We have devotions and Christmas music and other things as part of that night. And then the following Sunday, leading up to Christmas, is our children's Christmas service, which is always a wonderful service as our children again dress up Mary and Joseph and shepherds and animals and angels as they recount the Savior's birth. We have about 90 children participating in our children's service this year. And that night is our annual Christmas concert where we invite the community. It is our congregation's gift to the community as we celebrate the birth of our Savior with that musical event. And then, of course, looking ahead to Christmas Eve and our candlelight services and that joy as we get to rejoice in Jesus, the light of the world, singing Silent Night.
Pastor, these are different times. These are challenging times, it seems, and we wonder about the path of the future. One could imagine that it makes your work a little more challenging with all of the diversions in society today, but maybe it offers even greater opportunity for you and your congregation to make a difference.
Sure. I mean, every generation has its challenges. I mean, the founders of this congregation had their own unique challenges, and there are challenges today, but I am truly blessed as the pastor here because God has really brought together very faithful people, committed to the Lord's mission, committed to His Word, and it is just a pleasure and a joy to serve with and among them and to be built up together as members of the body of Christ and to be there for one another, to support and to encourage one another and to reach out so that our church family can continue to grow.
Being in a rural area is nothing new for you. You shared with me before the broadcast here, you came from central Nebraska, right?
Yeah, that's right. I grew up in a small town in south central Nebraska, Fairfield, Nebraska. My dad was the town butcher, so I grew up processing meat. I had my relatives, my extended family, they were farmers outside of town. So yes, very much appreciate growing up in that rural setting and to be able to serve in a rural setting now, not in south central Nebraska, but south central Indiana.
Henry, it's a diverse congregation, it strikes me. It's not all farmers and folks who support business. Being this close to Columbus, there must be a number of people from all walks of life. You must enjoy being a part of the church
exactly, here. Yes. And I, in my lifetime, had 50 years of Christian education. I taught and started out close to where you were raised, Vincennes, in a 2-room school, and then had the privilege to come back to Columbus and teach junior high. And then the last 7 years of my teaching career was spent here at St. Paul, directing preschool kindergarten. We started a kindergarten at that time, and they needed a licensed teacher that had a state license to come in to take that position, and we are indeed accredited, and so that worked in very well. And of course I had all my life a passion for farming and did that also.
Henry, thank you for sharing that story with us, that part of St. Paul Lutheran here, the education part of it. Pastor, thank you for a little bit of the background here. We're not done yet. We're going to share more of this story. St. Paul Lutheran Church out of the countryside, a little bit southeast of Columbus, Indiana, where we're originating a portion of this year's Christmas broadcast.
Merry Christmas, everyone. From my family to yours, thank you so much for making This Week in Agribusiness a part of your weekend viewing. We appreciate it, and we look forward to seeing you here when 2024 gets underway.
Back at St. Paul Lutheran Church, Columbus, Indiana. In south central Indiana, Indiana State Road 46 starts at around Terre Haute, Indiana, on the west side of the state, and you go past Bloomington, Indiana, past places like Narbonne and Nashville, and you come to Columbus. But then you head out southeast of Columbus on Route 46, and that's when you get to the campus here of St. Paul Lutheran Church. And Donna Sass has worshiped here for quite a few years, and you know the story of this congregation, of this community. Very interesting, not just the church, but the community near which it sits. Talk with us about Columbus, Indiana.
Well, first off, Indiana became a state in 1816 with the southern Indiana counties opening up for settlement in 1818. Our county is Bartholomew, which was formalized in 1821. On the Ohio River are Cincinnati, Ohio, and Madison, Indiana, and those two cities served as wonderful access points for the early settlers to enter the southern counties as they moved northward into the Northwest Territory. Our first settlers arrived here in the early 1840s, and this actually was called the Guthrie Trail. First it was the Michigan Road, and then it turned into the Guthrie Trail. And today, as you mentioned, it is State Road 46. Two of our earliest settlers were John Henry Fisher and John Dietrich Kohlmeyer, and they basically served as the welcoming committee to other Germans that entered this farming community. And so in about 1848 or so, they served as this welcoming committee. And so their hospitality included even welcoming Whipker's wife's first husband, Mr. Whipker. The Whipkers were married in Germany, and he went off to war, and he didn't come back. And so after 3 years, she immigrated to America, met Mr. Fisher in Cincinnati. They were married in 1843 and eventually found their way into the Clifty neighborhood. And one day there was a knock on their door, and it was their new neighbor who was there to announce that he had just purchased the farm next door. And that told her that her first husband had survived the war. And so the story goes on to say that they became very good neighbors, good friends, and even today, their ancestors, both the Fishers and the Whipkers, still own that farmland.
Let's switch gears to talk about the city of Columbus itself. It is such a unique municipality. You see it as you drive through, you look across the skyline. Yes, it has the typical Indiana county seat courthouse square, but when you look at everything around it, and the courthouse is very beautiful, but you look everything around it and you say, this is not your typical small town county seat.
That's right. And thanks to the philanthropic interest of Mr. J. Owen Miller, who was the CEO of Cummins, formerly known as Cummins Engine Company, today known as Cummins Inc. Columbus ranks 6th in the nation for the number of buildings designed by modern contemporary architects. I mean, we really are a world-class collection of buildings designed by renowned architects.
How did all that start, Donna? How did the architects find their way to Columbus?
There was a dire need for new schools after the post-war baby boom, and so Mr. Miller suggested that the need for these schools should be designed by renowned architects that could build a building that would last for over 100 years rather than just erecting something to meet a current need. And so in 1957, the first elementary school opened under this program where Cummins would pay the architectural fees if a prominent architect would design these buildings. And so once the program got started, the townspeople rather liked this. And so this program extended not only into schools and other public buildings, but even firehouses. As I mentioned to you earlier, even our local jail has been designed by Don Hasaka of New York. And so this program continues today. Now, sometimes the building is no longer used for its original purpose, but it has been purchased by some other firm and has been repurposed. For instance, a bank no longer is a bank, but it serves as a coffee shop. And another bank serves as an event center. And so that's how that goes.
Looking around the town square, it looks like it's a very vibrant city, very much alive and well.
Mr. Miller's philosophy continues in that the city over time has embraced design excellence and has committed to building a quality life through a better environment. And so even Lady Bird Johnson on her Crossroads tour in America in 1967 called Columbus the Athens of the Prairie.
Cummins very much intertwined with this community, and I guess also some of its workforce very much a part of St. Paul Lutheran.
Yes, we have members here that work for Cummins. Well, we have a lot of talented people in a lot of different areas, and so that's always exciting when we have new members join to see, well, what are their occupations and what talents are they bringing to the congregation to share.
I would imagine you would suggest that folks ought to put Columbus on their must-see list. I have fellows tell me, I've got a bucket list of towns that I want to go to, Max, after seeing you talk about these over the years. Folks ought to plan to make their way to Columbus sometime, right?
Oh, absolutely. We have people literally come from all over the world to see our architecture. And I suppose that not only the architecture, but also we have tours that are offered for the Miller House, which was the home by Mr. J. Irwin Miller and his wife Xenia. Their home was built in 1957 and was designed by Eero Saarinen, who used Dan Kiley as a landscape architect with Alexander Gerard as the interior designer. And those three designers were at the peak of their career. And it's just an absolutely fabulous blend of how they all intertwine and work together.
A place to see, Columbus, Indiana. Donna Sass, thank you for sharing the story with us. There's so much more, and folks can get more information by going to the website, columbus.in.us. We'll send them to the website and send them to you. Maybe they'll be lucky enough to have you as a tour guide sometime, Donna.
I would love that. Thank you.
Donna Sass here at St. Paul Lutheran Church, Columbus, Indiana.
Hi, I'm Don Torty with Farm Progress, and on behalf of all of us from Farm Progress, we wish you a very happy holiday and all the best in the new year.
Welcome back to This Week in Agribusiness. As we've found many years as we visit congregations for our special Christmas show, we're reminded of the fact that the music ministry is such an important part of this Christmas season. And here to visit with us over the next few minutes is the cantor here at St. Paul Lutheran, Dan Mao. It's a pleasure to have you on This Week in Agribusiness. It's a special season for you, isn't it?
It certainly is. It's a great time of year. It's a joy to serve here, and it's always a joy to serve through Advent and Christmas. It's very
How
special.
early do you start the music preparation for the music ministry of the holiday season?
As early as possible, really. We try to be 6 months out, and a lot of times with the choirs, we're at least a month ahead. So one of the challenges in church music is during the Christmas season, you're preparing for Lent and Easter. As far as the choirs and that, we try to always be a month ahead, because people travel, people are have different things going on, and make sure that everybody's in a place where they feel very comfortable and set them up for success.
In some churches, it's a challenge to fill the choir loft. It's a little bit of a challenge sometimes. Sometimes folks aren't confident of their abilities, and their schedules can conflict sometimes. How do you handle it here at St. Paul Lutheran?
Well, we try to be very flexible. One of the things Pastor Bauman has always stressed, and that I think is really something that all church musicians can benefit from, is the idea that we set our people up for success. We prepare music, we write music that is going to fit them. And one of the things that I'm blessed with is to have had some wonderful teachers through my education that felt very strongly that musicians should write some of their own music, and you write it to the people that you have, to your performing group. If you have 4 people, you write it for 4 people. Here I'm very blessed. We have a wonderful senior choir, senior handbells, junior choirs, junior handbell choirs, junior hand chimes choirs. But I write a lot of music for those groups that I think suits them and suits the spoken word for that particular Sunday.
Have you had some professionals come through here, or maybe they eventually became a professional performer?
We actually have members in this congregation that performed on Broadway. There was a gentleman that some years ago performed on Broadway. We have a lot of musicians here that have degreed, that are music degreed from various universities, and so it's a very unique congregation in that respect.
It's hard to miss that magnificent organ here at St. Paul Lutheran. Give us some of the background on that, some of the detail, if you would. It was manufactured by a company in Iowa, as I recall.
It certainly was. Dobson Pipe Organ Company, Lynn Dobson and John Panning. John Panning has taken over since Lynn retired. The organ was installed in 1991, and it was up the hill. It was in the old church. And from what I understand, the committee was very specific that they wanted an instrument that could be moved if they ever decided to build a new sanctuary. And so Dobson received the contract, and the organ then was moved down here in 2009 when this new sanctuary was built. The organ is 17 ranks, over 2 manuals and pedal. It's a mechanical action instrument. Both with the key action and the stop action. And it is really as close to a perfect instrument for this space and also to interpret the Lutheran liturgy and the hymnody of the Lutheran Church. It's a joy to play.
My goodness. I suppose this isn't exactly in your wheelhouse, but while we're talking about it, I have to mention the bell outside. That's hard to miss too, isn't it, Dan?
It is. The bell was picked out of the bell tower from the old church, and that project I think was last year. Interestingly enough, I am in charge of ringing that. So that's one of those things where you take something that's really old and give it some technology, and we have a remote control for it. So at the beginning of every service, before we sing the first hymn, we ring the bell, and the bell is struck 3 times also during the Lord's Prayer.
I would imagine, depending on the direction of the wind, it can be heard for quite a ways across the Indiana countryside.
It certainly can, and there were a lot of smiling faces when that bell was brought down into the new bell tower and heard again, because it hadn't been rung before services for quite some time.
In the final seconds here, talk a bit about the bell choir here at the church.
The handbell choir is just a wonderful group. It's presently comprised of all women, so I'm always outnumbered. But they're wonderful musicians, and they really want to serve their Lord through the church's song. One of the things with the bell choir that's so unique is that every ringer is the most important player. Every bell is important, and so it's a team sport for music making. I was very blessed to have Dr. John Benke as my bell choir instructor at Concordia, Wisconsin, and that's the gift that keeps on giving, really. To have that background and to have that expertise given to me, and then hopefully I can pass some of that on to them.
It brings a special flavor to the holiday services, doesn't it?
It certainly does. It's a very unique sound.
Dan, thank you for sharing this story with us. Dan Mao, the cantor here at St. Paul Lutheran Church, and that includes responsibilities with the magnificent handbell choir.
This week in Agribusiness. Our special Christmas edition of This Week in Agribusiness is brought to you by Case IH.
Welcome back to the special edition of This Week in Agribusiness, continuing our tradition of visiting churches at Christmas time. And we now, for the second part of our broadcast, head some 300 miles to the southwest of Columbus, Indiana, Perry County, Missouri, to the St. Rose of Lima Catholic Church at Silver Lake, Missouri. And the Zoller boys are joining us here. Mike and Bob, it's great to have you with us to tell us the history of this church. And you both grew up right here, didn't you, Mike?
Absolutely, yeah. Welcome to Silver Lake.
Well, thank you. Silver Lake, explain why it is called Silver Lake. There is a lake.
There is a lake, and there's a lot of springs that come out of the lake, and the springs part of what feeds Perryville in water, the county seat for Perry County. And in the springs, it has a silver color. If you get over the springs and look down in them, it has a silver tint to it. So that's where the name came from, Silver Lake.
Was there a report that they were mining here at one time out of that lake area?
In the hills, we always called the hills on the north side of Silver Lake area the mine hills. In the 1870s, 1880s, there was mining going on there, all hand-dug mines.
Bob, I looked on the map, and Silver Lake, Missouri shows up on the map, but there's not too much here, is there?
No, that's very small. Back in the late 1800s, early 1900s, we had a blacksmith shop and a feed mill. We had 2 different feed mills here. An old store also was just across the road from the church here, so that was kind of the Silver Lake community. Then was just the church has always been the hub of our community. Everybody congregated at the church, and all the events, everybody attended. So that was how everybody kept in touch with each other, was going to church.
I was walking around the outside of the building. I saw the lightning rods up there atop the roof, and it just reminded me that many of these houses of worship, this old, have had some kind of a calamity along the way. Was there one of those here for St. Rose of Lima, Mike?
Absolutely. In 1936, there was a fire. The story goes they expected it was a bird picked up a cigarette butt and put it up in its nest in the rafters or in the eaves, and that started the fire. And it completely ruined the inside of the church. The stones were still standing, but the church had to be completely redone.
I walked around the outside, as I said, and I looked at those stones. They've been rehabbed over the years. There's been tuck pointing done here at some point, right?
I expect that was the original when they rebuilt in 39. They started having services again in here, and I expect that tuck pointing goes all the way back to then.
As I look around, there are beautiful trees here. When you guys were boys, did you bring in real trees?
Yes, at Christmas time, that was the big thing. We had groups. We would all go out, my dad and my brothers and others from the church, and that was the big thing, to go out and cut down the cedar trees and bring them in. We'd have 5 or 6, like 6-foot trees, and had wooden stands. He'd trim them to fit in the stands and put them up where the nativity is here in church now, and decorated. Then that was a big event, decorating for Christmas.
A big group event just with your family alone,
Yes.
was it not, Bob? A big family.
Yes,
How many
we
kids?
had 9 children in our family, and several of the families in the community were large families, and everybody came to help decorate the church, and all the events was well attended. All of the families participated, and it was just a good community thing.
The nativity scenes are beautiful here, Mike. There's one right over your shoulders, behind you there. That one appears to have some history to it. It looks like it's been around a while.
It's been before either of us know of. I'm not sure how old that it is, but we can remember 60 years, so it's older than that.
No worship services are held here on a regular basis, correct?
Unfortunately, in 2014, we lost our Sunday services, so now we just have weddings and funerals and about half a dozen services a year besides that.
Boy, those are important yet, though, aren't they? You think about the milestones of life, and you still observe those here.
That's for sure. Yeah, this church means so much to us that grew up here, and we're trying to preserve it, and we're proud of it, and we've got such a legacy that the people before us left that we want to make sure that we do our part.
Bob, we noticed nativity scenes in the windows. Those are nice as well. That's an effort of one
Yes,
of your...
one of our parishioners that has owns all of them, and she comes in and they set them all up, and each one is different in each window, and they're all very beautiful.
They are quite nice. Mike, whenever the church tour takes place here, that night, I guess it must be an exciting time for you to welcome folks in.
Absolutely. It's funny how people come from so far away, and people that are tied to the church in some way or another, that come from other states even, and tell us their ties to Silver Lake and when they was in this church before.
The two of you, you've really brightened up our Christmas season by sharing the story here of Rose of Lima Catholic Church at Silver Lake, Missouri. I hope I get to come back sometime. Nice to visit with you both. Thank you, Mike and Bob.
Thank you, and glad you came.
We'll continue our special edition of This Week in Agribusiness with another stop right here in Perry County, Missouri, as we continue after this.
Well, Merry Christmas, one and all, from mine to yours. Your family and one and all across the country. Make it a great and safe holiday season, and all the best wishes for a happy and healthy and safe 2024.
Welcome back here. We've changed counties in our visit in southeast Missouri, going from Perry County to Cape County. Now they're in Perry County, where we were with the Zahner boys. Bob Zahner has some other cows out there as a part of the agriculture industry. Good agriculture region here, corn, soybeans, cow-calf operations. The gentleman we're going to visit with has a little different indirect tie to agriculture. And joining us here is Todd Rushing. We're in Pocahontas, Missouri at this time. You work with the river system, the transport of grains and fertilizers and other products on the Mississippi not far away, right, Todd?
That's correct. I'm the third generation, and we've done work with towboat companies on the river for all that time. We talk about the rivers often because they're so crucial, of course, to the transport of commodities and the agriculture industry, but they've been important to this region, haven't they, in a number of ways for a long time. Well, it's a very important way to get our goods to market, and also it's a good source. The river industry is a good source of employment for this area as well. Apple Creek Presbyterian Church is where we are, and there's limited heat here. There's no electricity. It really makes it one of the special churches on the Christmas church tour here in southeast Missouri, it seems to me. Tell me about this structure. Well, so this is actually the third structure that was built for Apple Creek. So in 1821, Apple Creek Church was established. The next year, the first structure was built, and that served for about 10 years, in which case the second structure was built. This particular church building was built in 1873, so this year it is 150 years old. And as you said, we don't have any running water, no electricity, and we've got the stoves in the back that provide the heat. So it's a journey back in time. The lanterns are lit for that Christmas tour service here, and well, you have lanterns that are lit another time of the year. There are services throughout the year here on a limited basis, correct, Todd? Correct. So there are three. We have at least 3 services a year along with the Christmas tour. So every April, we have what we call our Gaslight Hymn Sing, which is when we have some bands come in and we sing hymns under the gaslights in the dark. We do that in April, and then in May, the third Sunday in May, we have our annual church service, and that is a regular church service where we have a speaker and hymns, and then following that service, we go outside and have a picnic on the grounds, and that's one of our more popular services. And then our third service is in September, where we once again have kind of a musical service where we have a band come in and play, and we sing along with them. So 3 services a year to kind of keep the memory of the old church alive. We're visiting here on a chilly, not bitterly cold December day, and the stove back there is doing its thing. Yes, and it can get really warm. The thermostat is a little bit hard to manage in here, so we can get it really warm or sometimes not warm enough, but it's all based on the old stove in the back. Why are you involved as president of the board here? How did that come to pass? So my grandfather on my mom's side, his family went to church here, and many of them are buried in the cemetery out here. So again, it's a generational thing that that my grandfather, about 25 years ago, asked me to be on the board and help maintain the history out here. So that's when I started, and I've been the president of the board for about 15 years now.
So you grew up right in the community here?
Yes, I live in Jackson, which is just a couple miles down the road.
Carolyn Thompson, we know, plays the organ here, and we've asked her to do a little performing for us. There are only, I guess there's a piano and an organ, and that's it, right?
That's it, and typically we use the organ, and Carolyn's always been gracious enough to play music at pretty much every service we've had, as long as I've been involved as well. So she does a great job. It's an old pump organ. That organ was actually purchased for this church many years ago. It was sold at one point when the church kind of closed for regular services, and the family that bought it ended up donating it back. So it kind of went on its own little journey as well. But we have the old pump organ here, and it still makes beautiful music.
So it got away for a while.
It got away for a while, yes, sir.
Anything interesting otherwise about this church or its congregation through the years that comes to mind, Todd, that our audience might find interesting?
Well, I think the cemetery has a lot of history. When you talk to people in this area or even out of this area that have ties to this area, I'll say, it all kind of comes back to Apple Creek Cemetery. It's one of the largest old cemeteries in the area. We've got 4 Revolutionary War soldiers buried there. There's a section of the cemetery that is unmarked that was where they did kind of mass burials during the cholera epidemic. So that's kind of an interesting area. We've got, I think, over 40 Civil War soldiers buried out there. So there's a lot of history out there, and you will find people doing genealogy. They all say, well, we got to go to Apple Creek because that's where it all kind of began in this area. This is the 3rd oldest Presbyterian church west of the Mississippi.
Let's emphasize that. Repeat that phrase one more time.
This is the 3rd oldest Presbyterian church west of the Mississippi.
You know, upkeeping of a facility like this requires some effort by all means, and the cemetery nearby. You must feel somewhat of a sense of mission about your involvement here, Todd.
Well, we do. The whole board is very much engaged in what we do here in maintaining the beautiful cemetery and the grounds, and trying to maintain the church to make it look like it did originally and keep it like it was originally. And we want to maintain that heritage, and you know, somehow financially we always seem to come out even. The good Lord blesses us every year with enough to maintain, and we're just so thankful for that.
Todd, thank you so much. We appreciate you sharing the story with us. Merry Christmas to you.
Well, Merry Christmas to you. Thank you.
Todd Rushing at the Apple Creek Presbyterian Church, Pocahontas, Missouri. There's more coming up. Stay right with us. Well, here in Missouri once more, we're visiting another Lutheran church, as we did in Columbus, Indiana, to start this broadcast. Frona, Missouri is where we are, at Concordia Lutheran Church. And Denise Morrison and Bill Bach have joined us here to talk a bit about this congregation with a very rich heritage, right, Bill? It goes back a ways.
Yes, it goes back to 1839 when the Saxon immigration settled this Perry County area.
I'll come to you for a little more background on this church in just a moment, the structure itself. But Denise, you're so decked out for the holidays here. It's a wonderful atmosphere in this church. Some of you work together to make that happen, don't you?
Yes, we do. There's a group of ladies that get together and do the inside, and some of the guys help too. And then the outside, the guys and the ladies, you know, it's a different crew though. So we have two different crews that decorate. Some do the inside and some do the outside.
There's quite a bit to it. I would imagine you're into somewhat of a routine annually now, correct?
Oh, yes, yes, yes. We have a tendency to do the garland and the wreaths first, and then we follow up with the Christmas tree, the altar, and then we move to the narthex.
Do you plan to make a few changes every year, or do you keep the decorations pretty much the same?
Every year we change it just a little bit. Don't get real elaborate because we sort of all like what we have, but as time goes on, things get a little older or outdated, and it just seems nice to have something new. A couple of years ago we changed what was in the windows. 2 years ago we got a different tree, so it just makes things different and fun.
Is Christmas the only time of the year that you decorate here at Concord?
No, we decorate in the fall also. We have what's called a Harvest Home Festival, and we decorate with produce from the fields and then also produce from the gardens. And then that, some of it stays for the all the way until Thanksgiving.
Bill, you mentioned the settlement here. This church goes back quite some time, and a German settlement, and this is a fairly old community here, isn't it?
Yes. In fact, Frona was settled by 12 young families together with their pastor. Initially, they worshiped in the pastor's home until they could build a church, which was a very simple little log cabin in 17 feet by 27 feet, because it was just a small group. That was built in 1843 to 44. And then when they outgrew that, in 1854, they built a larger stone church, built out of limestone, which was dug out of the ground locally. And this church was then built in 1874, because they were at the point, well, they had been using the log cabin as their school, and they didn't have enough room anymore, so the question was, shall we build a new church or a new school? They decided on the church and built this building in 1874 then, and it has served ever since that time.
I can't help but notice how modern, though, the interior looks. It has been restored at some point along the way, and in a very beautiful manner.
It's been restored numerous times. In 1849 is when the center aisle was put in. Before that, there were 2 side aisles only. Then in 2006, when we did a complete renovation, stripping the walls down to the bare walls, and then restoring it to try to keep everything appearing as close to possible as it was originally.
And your background is in the construction business, so I'm sure you applied some of your skills right here on the site. You built homes for a living, right?
Yes, we did. And we built a lot of the homes around the area here, served the community, and also doing plumbing and heating work. I was retired only about 2 years before this church was built, so I volunteered my time for the entire time of the remodeling.
You can see the belfry easily here, and the steeple at this church, is it a working bell?
Yes, it is. There's a little interesting story with that. When this church was built, there was a young men's society here, and they also wanted to contribute something special to the church, so they decided they wanted to furnish the bell. So several of the young men went to St. Louis, to a place where bells were available. And when they heard the prices of the bells, they knew they couldn't afford that. So they asked the man there if they didn't have anything else. He said, well, I do have one back here that's got a little flaw in it. And asked them how much money they had, and they told them, said, well, I can sell it to you for that price. So they purchased the bell, brought it in here.
Discounted?
Yes, considerably. They installed the bell then, and believe it or not, that bell is still being used, ringing every week.
The flaw has handled the responsibility and how long? How long has it been?
Since 1874 or 75 when they got the bell.
They got a good deal on that, didn't they?
Yes, they did.
Denise Morrison, Merry Christmas to you.
Merry Christmas to you.
Bill Bach, Merry Christmas to you, sir.
Wir wünschen euch ein fröhliches Weihnachten auch.
Oh, thank you so much. We appreciate the visit here, and we wish you well for a very happy 2024 ahead.
Thank you.
having heard from many of you across the country, you look forward to this unique visit that we bring you every year from country churches on This Week in Agribusiness. I must tell you that it's a highlight of the year for us too, to be able to come and see these houses of worship and to get some of the history and to be reminded how much they have meant to the communities that they have served. On behalf of our team, including Mike Pearson, my longtime colleague Orion Samuelson, Greg Solier, and our production team, Angelo Lazara, Ryan Rue, and Tim Lowe, this is Max Armstrong wishing you a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
You've been watching our special Christmas edition of This Week in Agribusiness. It's been brought to you by Case IH.